So I've got a few more examples here of us going to do a solving a quadratic, and so I want to go ahead and go through those examples. So this first one we have here, y equals 8x squared minus 6x. So the first step, of course, is to set that equal to 0. So we're going to do 8x squared minus 6x is equal to 0. And then we need to factor it. And so if you remember, we kind of not been doing this as much lately just because we knew what we were dealing with. But here we need to make sure that we go through the steps of factoring. So we always need to check to see if it needs to be simplified, rearranged, or a GCF removed. So in this case, we do have a GCF that needs to be removed. So the greatest common factor here is 2x. And if I divide each of these by 2x to take it out, I end up with 4x, and I end up with negative 3. Okay, so now it's fully factored, so we take those factors and we set them equal to 0. So 2x is equal to 0, and 4x minus 3 is equal to 0. And then we solve for x. So we divide by 2, so x is equal to 0. We add 3. 4x is equal to 3, we divide by 4, and x is equal to 3/4. Okay, so not necessarily something that we've seen before, but it's okay for one of your answers to be a fraction. So in this case, x is going to be equal to 0 and 3/4. And again, remember we write them from least to greatest. Okay, and that's how we solve a problem like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and do another example. So we'll do 9x squared minus 49. So again, check to make sure that nothing needs to be simplified, rearranged, or GCF removed. In this case it doesn't, but we do need to set it equal to 0. And to factor this, if you'll notice, this is a difference of squares. So we can actually factor this pretty easily. We take the square root of this, is 3x. Use the same sign, take the square root of 49 is 7. And then we do the same thing, but we change the sign. Okay, so here are our factors. So now we set those factors equal to 0, and we solve. So we add 7, we have 3x is equal to 7. We subtract 7, we have 3x is equal to negative 7, and we divide by 3. So x is equal to negative 7/3, positive 7/3, and x is equal to negative 7/3. Okay, so those are going to be our two solutions for this problem. X is equal to negative 7/3 and positive 7/3. Okay, let's go ahead and try one more example. So here we have an example where it's not written in standard form. So before we can do anything else, it does need to be written in standard form. So x squared plus 4x. To get this 21 over here, we're going to have to subtract it. So subtract the 21. And now we're equal to 0. So while moving it to standard form, we ended up putting it equal to 0 at the same time. So we got to kind of combine that into one step. So we subtracted the 21 from over here, and 21 minus 21 is 0. And then we just subtracted it from over here, because what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. Okay, so now we end up with a trinomial. It doesn't need to be simplified, rearranged, or a GCF removed. So we move into factoring this. We can check the factor test, but I do know that this does factor. So we need to find two numbers that multiply to equal negative 21 and add to equal 4. So if I were going to do that, I would say probably 7 and negative 3. If I multiply 7 times negative 3, I get negative 21. If I add 7 and negative 3, I get 4. So that's what I'm looking for, positive 7 and negative 3. So that's what I'm going to split this into. Okay, so again, this is just a review of a couple weeks ago when we did backwards FOIL. So x squared plus 7x minus 3x minus 21. We are going to group it and pull out the greatest common factor. So here is x, and I'm left with x plus 7. Here is a negative 3, and I'm left with x plus 7. I have a common factor of x plus 7, and the leftovers are x minus 3. Now if I check that and I multiply it back out, I am going to end up with what I started with, so those factors are correct. And so now I'm just going to take those factors and set them equal to 0. So to solve for x, I subtract 7. X is negative 7. and I add 3. So x is 3. So in this case, my solutions are -7 and 3. Okay, so another example there. All right, I'll do another video with a few more examples, a few more things that you might see. But again, it's just repeating those same processes that we've already learned. We know how to solve for a variable. We know how to factor using backwards FOIL. We know how to factor using difference of squares. We know how to do all of those things. We're just putting it all together to find those solutions.